Our shade does well to manage himself. We sent him home at the end of yesterday, and he's arrived with all of our new treasures. We have a new crystal, we have a new rug, and this horse. Well, it's just the head of a horse, but it's our horse. And you may have noticed that the time that has passed is at least another 24 hours. The seconds are getting to be a significant boost. It looks like 6 to 7 seconds. Oh, this just lets us move it. Let's take a look at our thoughts. I have seen nearly every area of the cave. Indeed we have. We haven't seen it all, but we've seen nearly everything. The Shade's wondering when he will have discovered every part of the cave. It's drawing closer, quite fast. Here we've surpassed now 40 days, which means we're 1/10 through the longing of 400 days. And there are a few more things that we can do and explore, but our book is telling us that what we have left to explore is very little indeed. That's all the same. My home is not comfortable enough for this long wait. So the Shade wants more. Perhaps the bed would be part of satisfying that. It would be nice to see another pair of eyes, because it is very lonely down here, and we've satisfied that with our horse. I should make a list of my feelings. He's crossed that out. Maybe that will be a small accomplishment, at least. So the Shade, perhaps, is no longer caring about his failings, or that the list itself is, he's done making the list. It's an interesting thing to cross out. So when we picked up the horse head, there's a bit of lore somewhere. I don't recall where exactly. It might be within one of the fables. This is our new book. It's a big one. This is something we can leave the Shade to read overnight. Well, he'll be reading it for the next few days, actually. I'm gonna skip through this one to see if I catch anything. Actually, let's read some. Why not? A man and his wife had the good fortune to possess a goose which laid a golden egg every day. Lucky though they were, they soon began to think they were not getting rich fast enough, and imagining the bird must be made of gold inside, they decided to kill it in order to secure the whole store of precious metal at once. But when they cut it open, they found it was just like any other goose. Thus, they neither got rich all at once, as they had hoped, nor enjoyed any longer the daily addition to their wealth. Much wants more and loses all. the mischievous dog. There was once a dog who used to snap at people and bite them without any provocation, and who was a great nuisance to everyone who came to his master's house. So his master fastened a bell around his neck to warn people of his presence. The dog was very proud of the bell, and strutting about, tinkling it with immense satisfaction. But an old dog came up to him and said, "The fewer airs you give yourself, the better, my friend. You don't think, do you, that your bell was given to you as a reward of merit? On the contrary, it is a badge of disgrace." Notoriety is often mistaken for fame. Once upon a time, all the mice met together in the council and discussed the best means of securing themselves against the attacks of the cat. After several suggestions had been debated, a mouse of some standing and experience got up and said, "I think I hit upon a plan which will ensure our safety in the future, provided you approve and carry it out. It is that we should fasten a bell around the neck of our enemy, the cat, which will, by its tinkling, warn us of her approach." This proposal was warmly applauded, and it had been already decided to adopt it, when an old mouse got upon his feet and said, "I agree with you. All that the plan before us is an admirable one. But may I ask, who is going to bell the cat?" It's a great idea, but who's going to execute it? Yeah. The dog and the sow were arguing, and each claimed that its own young ones were finer than those of any other animal. "Well," said the sow at last, "mine can see, at any rate, when they come into the world, but yours are born blind." Okay. That's a weird fable. There's no, comeback. It's just silence. It's the end of an argument. I think a lot of people, when they get into arguments, especially on the internet, that's what they hope to have. But would that satisfy them, or would that, anger them that they wrote this argument? Oh, the other person didn't even read it. They didn't even bother to reply. What are they going to say? "Oh, yes, sir, you were right." I kind of just wrote my own there. There once was a groom who used to spend long hours clipping and combing the horse, of which he had charge, but who daily stole a portion of his allowance of oats and sold it for his own profit. The horse gradually got into worse and worse condition, and at last cried to the groom, "If you really want me to look sleek and well, you must comb me less, feed me more." A cat heard that the birds in an aviary were ailing, so he got himself up as a doctor, and, taking with him a set of the instruments proper to his profession, presented himself at the door, and inquired after the health of the birds. "We shall do very well," they replied, without letting him in. "When we've seen the last of you. A villain may disguise himself, but he will not deceive the wise." I'm just jumping through. I think perhaps one of these will have the bit of lore we're looking for. A moon, the moon, once begged her mother to make her a gown. "How can I?" replied she. "There's no fitting your figure. At one time you're a new moon, and at another you're a full moon, and between whiles you're neither one nor the other." A lion, asleep in his chair, was waked up by a mouse running over his face. Losing his temper, he seized it with his paw and was about to kill it. The mouse, terrified, piteously entreated him to spare its life. Please let me go, it cried, and one day I will repay you for your kindness. The idea of so insignificant a creature ever being able to do anything for him amused the lion so much that he laughed aloud and good-humoredly let it go. But the mouse's chance came, after all. One day the lion got entangled in a net, which had been spread for game by some hunters, and the mouse heard and recognized the roars of anger and ran to the spot. Without more ado, it set to the work to gnaw the ropes with its teeth, and succeeded before long in setting the lion free. There, said the mouse, you laughed at me when I promised I would repay you, but now you see, even a mouse can help a lion. Oops. The hares and the frogs. The hares once gathered together and lamented the unhappiness of their lot. Exposed as they were to dangers on all sides and lacking the strength and the courage to hold their own, men, dogs, birds, and beasts of prey were all their enemies, and killed and devoured them daily. Sooner than endure such persecution any longer, they one and all determined to end their miserable lives. Thus resolved the desperate, they rushed in a body towards a neighboring pool, intending to drown themselves. On the bank were sitting a number of frogs, who, when they heard the noise of the hares as they ran, with one accord leapt into the water, and hid themselves in the depths. Then one of the older hares, who was wiser than the rest, cried out to his companions, "Stop, my friends, take heart. Don't let us destroy ourselves after all. See, here are creatures who are afraid of us, and who must therefore be still more timid than ourselves." It's kind of at the brink of killing themselves, they realized, oh, well, something has it worse than we do. The dolphins, the whales, and the sprat. The dolphins quarreled with the whales, and before very long they began fighting with one another. The battle was very fierce and had lasted some time without any sign of coming to an end, when a sprat thought that perhaps he could stop it. So he stepped in and tried to persuade them to give up fighting and make friends. But one of the dolphins said to him contemptuously, "We would rather go on fighting until we're all killed than be reconciled by a sprat like you." There was once a man who had an ass and a lapdog. The ass was housed in the stable with plenty of oats and hay to eat, and was well off as an ass could be. The little dog was made a great pet off by its master, who fondled him and often let him lie in his lap. If he went out for dinner, he would bring back a tidbit or two, and to give him when he ran to meet him on his return. The ass had, it is true, a good deal of work to do, carting or grinding the corn or carrying the burdens of the farm, and ere long he became very jealous, contrasting his own life of labor with the ease and idleness of the lapdog. At last, one day he broke his halter, and frisking into the house, just as his master sat down to dinner, he pranced and capered about, mimicking the frolics of the little favorite, upsetting the table and smashing the crockery with his clumsy efforts. Not content with that, he even tried to jump on his master's lap, as he had so often seen the dog allowed to do. At that, the servants, seeing the danger their master was in, belabored the silly ass with sticks and cudgels, and drove him back into his stable, half dead, with his beating. "Alas," he cried, "all this I have brought on myself. Why could I not be satisfied with my natural and honorable position, without wishing to imitate the ridiculous antics of that useless little lapdog?" It's kind of a wisdom thing. I think, though, sometimes The attention you want is what that other one is getting. And how do you ask for it? Instead, he just went about acting like a dog. The frog's complaint against the sun. Once upon a time, the sun was about to take himself a wife. The frogs, in terror, all raised their voices to the skies, and Jupiter, disturbed by the noise, asked them what they were croaking about. They replied, "The sun is bad enough even while he is single, drying up our marshes with his heat as he does, but what will become of us if he marries and begets other sons? For all sorts of things, particularly when men build houses, they can't do without me then." Oh, wait, what? What happened here? Oh, I see. I pushed direction in the wrong way. And that was the end of it. Yeah, what would happen if the sun had children and had more sons? A slave ran away from his master, by whom he had been most cruelly treated, and, in order to avoid capture, betook himself into the desert. As he wandered about in search of food and shelter, he came to a cave, which he entered and found to be occupied. Really, however, it was a lion's den, and almost immediately, to the horror of the wretched fugitive, the lion himself appeared. The man gave himself up for lost, but, to his utter astonishment, the lion, instead of springing upon him and devouring him, came and fawned upon him, at the same time whining and lifting up his paw. Observing it to be much swollen and inflamed, he examined it and found a large thorn embedded in the ball of the foot. He accordingly removed it and dressed the wound as well as he could, and in course of time it healed up completely. The lion's gratitude was unbounded. He looked upon the man as his friend, and they shared the cave for some time together. A day came, however, when the slave began to long for the society of his fellow men, and he bade farewell to the lion and returned to the town. Here he was presently recognized and carried off in chains to his former master, who resolved to make an example of him, and ordered that he should be thrown to the beasts at the next public spectacle in the theater. On the fatal day, the beasts were loosed into the arena, and among the rest a lion of huge bulk and ferocious aspect, and then the wretched slave was cast in among them. What was the amazement of the spectators when the lion, after one glance, bounded up to him and lay down at his feet with every expression of affection and delight. It was his old friend of the cave. The audience clamored that the slave's life should be spared, and the governor of the town, marveling at such gratitude and fidelity in a beast, decreed that both should receive their liberty. Sometimes it's skipping. A farmer's boy went looking for snails, and when he had picked up both his hands full, he set about making a fire at which to roast them, for he meant to eat them. When it got well alight, and the snails began to feel the heat, they gradually withdrew more and more into their shells, with the hissing noise. They always make when they do so. When the boy heard it, he said, "You abandoned creatures, how can you find heart to whistle when your houses are burning?" Weird. It's kind of interesting, though. This young boy who doesn't know about snails, making food of them, hears this whistling, and he's like, "What are you guys so happy about? Why are you whistling?" The Fox and the Goat. A fox fell into a well and was unable to get out again. By and by, a thirsty goat came by, and seeing the fox in the well, asked him if the water was good. Good, said the fox. It's the best water I've ever tasted in all my life. Come down, try it for yourself. The goat thought of nothing but the prospect of quenching his thirst, and jumped in at once. When he had enough to drink, he looked about, like the fox, for some way of getting out, but could find none. Presently, the fox said, I have an idea. You stand on your hind legs, plant your forelegs firmly against the side of the well. Then I'll climb out on your back, and from there, by stepping on your horns, I can get out. When I'm out, I'll help you out too. The goat did as he was requested, and the fox climbed onto his back, and so out the well. And then he coolly walked away. The goat called loudly after him and reminded him of his promise to help him out, but the fox merely turned and said, If you had as much sense in your head as you have hair on your beard, you wouldn't have got into the well without making certain that you can get out again. Look before you leap. He should pay attention to himself, silly fox, because he was the one that didn't look before he leaped. An old crab said to her son, Why do you walk sideways like that, my son? You ought to walk straight. The young crab replied, Show me how, dear mother, and I'll follow your example. The old crab tried, but tried in vain, and then saw how foolish she had been to find fault with her child. A certain man hired an ass for a journey in summertime, and started out with the owner following behind to drive the beast. By and by, in the heat of the day, they stopped to rest. The traveler wanted to lie down in the ass's shadow, but the owner, who himself wished to be out in the sun, wouldn't let him do that. For he said he had hired the ass only, and not his shadow. The other maintained that his bargain secured him complete control of the ass for the time being. From words, they came to blows. While they were belaboring each other, the ass took to its heels and was soon out of sight. You rented the animal, you didn't rent his shadow. People, sometimes they're like that. At a gathering of all the animals, the monkey danced and delighted them so much that they made him their king. The fox, however, was very much disgusted at the promotion of the monkey, so, having one day found a trap with a piece of meat in it, he took the monkey there and said to him, Here, it's a dainty morsel I found. Sire, I do not take it myself because I thought it ought to be reserved for you, our king. Will you be pleased to accept it? The monkey made out once for the meat and got caught in the trap. Then he bitterly reproached the fox for leading him into danger, but the fox only laughed and said, Oh, monkey, you call yourself king of the beasts and yet haven't more sense to be taken in like that. Lamp, well filled with oil, burned with a clear and steady light, and began to swell with pride and boast that none shone more brightly than the sun himself. And then a puff of wind came and blew it out. Someone struck a match, lit it again, and said, You just keep a light. Never mind the sun. Why, even the stars never need to be relit, as you had to be just now. Yeah, you tell that little candle, put him in his place, or the lamp. It wasn't a candle. Jupiter granted beards to the she-goats at their own request, much to the disgust of the he-goats, who considered this to be an unwarrantable invasion of their rights and dignities. So they sent a deputation to him to protest against his actions. He, however, advised them not to raise any objections. What's in a tuft of hair, said he. Let them have it if they want it. They can never be a match for you in strength. So I guess they took the beard as some form of symbolism, but he's kind of saying, why take pride in the symbolism? It doesn't really mean they are the same. A hungry fox found in a hollow tree a quantity of bread and meat, which some shepherds had placed there against their return. Delighted with his find, he slipped in through the narrow aperture and greedily devoured it all. But when he tried to get out again, he found himself so swollen after his big meal he could not squeeze through the hole, and fell, to the whining and groaning over his misfortune. Another fox, happening to pass that way, came and asked him what the matter was, and on learning the state of the case said, "Well, my friend, I see nothing for it for you to stay where you are till you shrink to your former size. Then you'll get out easily enough." It's kind of like saying your ego has caused you to get into this mess. Your ego's big. Wait till you come back to your senses, and then it'll all be fine. There is a bit of a theme going through these. With the donkey, Jupiter. The olive tree and the fig tree. An olive tree taunted a fig tree with the loss of her leaves at a certain season of the year. "You," she said, "lose your leaves every autumn and are bare till the spring, whereas I, as you see, remain green and flourishing all the year round." Soon afterwards, there came a heavy fall of snow, which settled on the leaves of the olive so that she bent and broke under the weight. But the flakes fell harmlessly through the bare branches of the fig, which survived to bear many another. Ah, suddenly it's no longer a fig tree, it's bearing other crops. No. Lions, trees, another man and another lion. A kid climbed up on the roof of an outhouse, attracted by the grass and other things that grew in the thatch. And as he stood there, browsing away, he caught sight of a wolf passing below, and jeered at him because he couldn't reach him. The wolf only looked up and said, "I hear you, my young friend, but it is not you who mock me, but the roof on which you are standing." I get it. The little person trying to be mocking, well, it's not his own strength by which allowed him to be up on the roof. It's the roof strength. A traveler was about to start on a journey, said to his dog, who was stretching himself by the door, "Come, what are you yawning for? Hurry up, get ready. I mean you to go with me." But the dog merely wagged his tail and said quietly, "I'm ready, master. It's you I'm waiting for." The wild boar was engaged in whetting his tusks upon the trunk of a tree in the forest when a fox came by, and, seeing what he was at, said to him, "Why are you doing that, pray? The huntsmen are not out today, and there are no other dangers at hand I can see." "True, my friend," replied the boar, "but the instant my life is in danger, I shall need to use my tusks. There will be no time to sharpen them then." The fox being, how do you say, too efficient. So efficient that he's like, "Well, that's not needed today." But the boar's like, "Yeah, so they'll be ready when I need them." A fox, who had never seen a lion one day, met one, and was so terrified at the sight of him, he was ready to die with fear. After a time, he met him again, and was still rather frightened, but not so nearly as much as he had been when he first met him. And when he saw him for the third time, he was so far from being afraid that he went up to him and began to talk to him as if he had known him all his life. I know that one. It's like a false familiarity where even if you just travel back and forth through the same location and you see somebody who also travels that same direction, perhaps you've never seen them or met them before. They can come from a completely different way of lifestyle. But because after a time of you constantly seeing them again and again, you could just walk up to them, talk to them, have conversation as if you already know each other. So it's a weird thing. I'm going to keep going through these. I don't think our poem is here. The Peacock and Juno. The peacock was greatly discontented because he had not a beautiful voice like the nightingale, and he went and complained to Juno about it. The nightingale's song, said he, is the envy of all the birds, but whenever I utter a sound, I become a laughingstock. The goddess tried to console him by saying, You have not, it is true, the power of song, but then you far excel all the rest in beauty. Your neck flashes like the emerald, and your splendid tail is a marvel of gorgeous color. But the peacock was not appeased. What is the use, said he, of being beautiful, with a voice like mine? Then Juno replied, with a shade of sternness in her tones, Fate has allotted to all their destined gifts. To yourself, beauty, to the eagle, strength, and to the nightingale, song, and so on to all the rest in their degree. But you alone are dissatisfied with your portion. Make, then, no more complaints, for if your present wish were granted, you would quickly find cause for fresh discontent. I guess they're just trying to prevent this animal from being spoiled. I have all this beauty, but I'm not great without song. Okay, now you have song. Yeah, but it's not great without... So somebody's wise and has seen the pattern of these kinds of ways before. Just cut them off right from the start. The Ox and the Frog. Two little frogs were playing about the edge of the pool when an ox came down to the water to drink, and, by accident, trod on one of them, crushed the life out of him. When the old frog missed him, she asked his brother where he was. He is dead, mother, said the little frog. An enormous big creature with 4 legs came to our pool this morning and trampled him down into the mud. Enormous was he. Was he as big as this? Said the frog, puffing herself out to look as big as possible. Oh, yes, much bigger, was the answer. The frog puffed herself out still more. Was he as big as this? She said. Oh, yes, yes, mother, much bigger, said the little frog. Yet again she puffed herself out till she was almost as round as a ball. As big as, she began, but then she burst. So they lost 2 frogs. Why? Who would write this story? What's that? A wagoner was driving his team along a muddy lane with a full load behind them, when the wheels of his wagon sank so deep into the mire, no efforts of his horses could move them. As he stood there, looking helplessly on, and calling loudly at intervals upon Hercules for assistance, the god himself appeared, and said to him, Put your shoulder to the wheel, man, and goad on your horses. Then you may call on Hercules to assist you. If you won't lift a finger to help yourself, you can't expect Hercules or anyone else to come to your aid. The Blackamoor. A man once bought an Ethiopian slave who had a black skin like all Ethiopians, but his new master thought his color was due to his late owners having neglected him, and that all he wanted was a good scrubbing. So he set to work with plenty of soap and hot water and rubbed away at him with a will, but all to no purpose. His skin remained as black as ever, while the poor wretch all but died from the cold he caught. Ah, poor guy. He was just trying to help him out, wasn't trying to be mean. I mean, he didn't know better. A rich man took up the residence next door to a tanner, and found the smell of the tan yard so extremely unpleasant that he told him he must go. The tanner delayed his departure, and the rich man had to speak to him several times about it. Every time, the tanner said he was making arrangements to move very shortly. This went on for some time, till at last the rich man got so used to the smell he had ceased to mind it, and troubled the tanner with his objections no more. It's like that, though. People are very adaptable to new things. That, well, it doesn't work in every case, because if it's not a good situation, it's not a good situation. But there are a lot of things people can adapt to. The lioness and the vixen. The lioness and the vixen were talking together about their young, as mothers will, saying how healthy and well grown they were, and what beautiful coats they had, and how they were the image of their parents. My litter of cubs is a joy to see, said the fox. And then she added, rather maliciously, but I notice you never have more than one. No, said the lioness grimly, but that one's a lion. Oh, that was the story of Horror and the Tortoise. The hare was one day making fun of a tortoise for being so slow upon his feet. Wait a bit, said the tortoise. I'll run a race with you, and I'll wager that I win. Oh, well, replied the hare, who was much amused at the idea. Let's try and see. And it was soon agreed that the fox should set a course for them, and be the judge. When the time came, both started off together, but the hare was soon so far ahead that he thought he might as well have a rest. So down he lay and fell fast asleep. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on and, in time, reached the goal. At last, the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Slow and steady. It's kind of, as we were talking before about each day being 1% of growth. Could be positive growth, could be negative growth, whatever growth you want to have. But it's that slow and steady bit, not to try to accomplish 50% in a day. That your best efforts are only going to accomplish 1%. And it's a good pattern to keep in mind. I also think of it when playing games, especially if it's a game I like. Because with those kinds of games, you tend to forget that you need to eat. You tend to forget that you need to sleep, and you just keep going. And I do know stories of people, even on Twitch, who have died just because they wanted to be the first or go the furthest playing a certain game. And yeah, when you think about it, they've only gone, 48 hours worth, 5 days worth into the game. In a month's time, everybody's going to have surpassed that. What was your effort all for? It didn't really accomplish anything. If anything, you just cut it short. And that's a hard one to do because habit, our body speaks to us, but from recognizing the pattern, or even acknowledging that perhaps that's not a healthy pattern to have, and that it's not about your will. It's like, I'm strong enough, I can do it. It's not about that. It's not about, hey, this is a bad thing for you in the long run. It's not about that either. It's more of, to me, it's if it's something you really enjoy, what happens when you run out of it? If you run out of it in a week, then what are you going to do after that? If it's such a rare thing and such a treat, why not make the most of it? Why not enjoy it for as long as you can? Kind of with the longing, where we're reaching that point where we're almost done with places we can explore. However, that's not the end of the game. There's so much more the game can offer us with art, with things we can draw, with decorating our home. You can also speedrun lots of those. You can let the shade read through all the books. You can just smash the buttons through all the books. But there's content in there that we could have enjoyed. So, yeah, that's what we're doing today. I had meant to share that little bit about lore with the horse head we just found. I know it's in here somewhere, and we're going to come across it eventually. But because we didn't find it, I'm not just going to mash through this book of fables, because there's some fun and interesting things to be read here. And there's plenty of time. There's no need to rush. As I skip through another one. A wolf stole a lamb from the flock and was carrying it off to devour it at his leisure when he met a lion, who took his prey away from him and walked off with it. He dared not resist, but when the lion had gone some distance, he said, "It is most unjust of you to take what's mine away from me like that." The lion laughed and called out in reply, "It was justly yours, no doubt. The gift of a friend, perhaps, eh?" I don't get it. I kind of do, but The horse and his rider. A young man who fancied himself something of a horseman mounted a horse which had not been properly broken in, and was exceedingly difficult to control. No sooner did the horse feel his weight in the saddle than he bolted, and nothing would stop him. A friend of the rider's met him in the road in his headlong career, and called out, "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" To which he, pointing to the horse, replied, "I've no idea. Ask him." Two pots, one of earthenware, the other of brass, were carried away down a river in flood. The brazen pot urged his companion to keep close by his side, that he would protect him. The other thanked him, but begged him not to come near on him on any account. For that, he said, is just what I am most afraid of. One touch from you, and I should be broken into pieces. Equals make the best friends. It's kind of something Zarathustra said, where he would respect somebody who was wise enough to stand with him, but he would not be a crutch. The Clown and the Countryman. A nobleman announced his intentions of giving a public entertainment in the theater, and offered splendid prizes to all who had any novelty to exhibit at the performance. The announcement attracted a crowd of conjurers, jugglers, and acrobats, and among the rest, a clown, very popular with the crowd. Let it be known that he was going to give an entirely new turn. When the day of the performance came, the theater was filled from top to bottom some time before the entertainment began. Several performers exhibited their tricks, and then the popular favorite came on, empty-handed and alone. At once there was a hush of expectation, and he, letting his head fall upon his breast, imitated the squeak of a pig to such perfection that the audience insisted on his producing the animal, which they said must have been somewhere concealed about his person. He, however, convinced them there was no pig there, and then the applause was deafening. Among the spectators was a countryman who disparaged the clown's performance and announced that he would give a much superior exhibition of the very same trick on the following day. Again, the theater was filled to overflowing, and again the clown gave his imitation amidst the cheers of the crowd. The countryman, meanwhile, before going on stage, had secreted a young porker under his smock. And when the spectators derisively bade him to do better if he could, he gave it a pinch in the ear and made it squeal loudly. But they all, with one voice, shouted out that the clown's imitation was much more true to life. Thereupon, he produced a pig from under his smock and said sarcastically, "There's. That shows what sort of judges you are." Huh. It's kind of clever. His sounds more like a pig, but then he revealed it was a pig. You skipped a title. The Prophet sat in the marketplace and told the fortunes of all who cared to engage his services. Suddenly, there came running up one who told him that his house had been broken into by thieves, and that they had made off with everything they could lay hands on. He was up in a moment and rushed off, tearing his hair and calling down curses on the miscreants. The bystanders were much amused, and one of them said, "Our friend professes to know what is going to happen to others, but it seems he is not clever enough to perceive what's in store for himself." Hound in the Hare. A young hound started a hare, and when he caught her up, would at one moment snap at her with his teeth, as though he were about to kill her, while at another he would let go his hold and frisk about her, as if he were playing with another dog. At last the hare said, "I wish you would show yourself in your true colors. If you are my friend, why do you bite me? If you are my enemy, why do you play with me?" He is no friend who plays double. The Lion, the Mouse, and the Fox. The lion was asleep at the mouth of his den when a mouse ran over his back and tickled him so that he woke up with a start and began looking about everywhere to see who it was who had disturbed him. A fox, who was looking on, thought he would have a joke at the expense of the lion, and so he said, "Well, this is the first time I've seen a lion afraid of a mouse." "Afraid of a mouse?" said the lion testedly. "Not I. It's his bad manners I can't stand." Okay. Okay. So perhaps, since it is titled Fables 1, perhaps it's Fables 2. Perhaps it's a book we don't yet have that has the bit of lore that we're looking for about our horsehead friend here. There is something to be found. So let's start to build a connection. I don't remember the colors, so we'll just look through them. Might be yellow, white. Ah, I found it already. The poem. This resembles exactly the horsehead that we have on our wall. And the titles, are quite interesting to a lot of things. Just to go back and share. Ladder. You can see the webs, and they're called ladders, which, because we've played the game, we can climb spider webs. We're small and light enough to do so. Someone who wouldn't know that, though, perhaps wouldn't think of them of a ladder. They probably would think, spider, stay away, right? What did I just click on? Well, we clicked on accident. So there are that kind of thing in the game, which just kind of describes normal things you would come across and see in the game. I really like that that one is just the base color. You start with this color. A friend. Spider is a friend. Father. Just a fuzzy image. Interesting. His hand. Yeah. So, for this to say poem, that's a curious thing to say. The horse head, can we talk to it? We cannot. I thought there was a way to interact with it. I'll attempt again here in a moment. The throne. That's our little throne. It's where we spend our time. We can move it. Where will we move it to? Let's see if we can get through another small section. It was nice to read something that's easy to swallow, because this stuff is dense. The preachers of death. They are preachers of death, and the earth is full of those to whom distance from life must be preached. The distance from life must be preached. Full is the earth of the superfluous. Married is life by the many to many. May they be decoyed out of this life by the life eternal. The yellow ones, so are called the preachers of death, or the black ones. But I will show them unto you in other colors besides. There are the terrible ones who carry about in themselves the beast of prey, and have no choice except lusts or self-laceration. And even their lusts are self-laceration. They have not yet become men, those terrible ones. May they preach distance from life and pass away themselves. They are the spiritually consumptive ones. I'm hearing an interesting sound. Don't know what's causing it. It's like the sound of a book closing. I think we'll hear it again in a moment. I'll try to continue. There are the spiritually consumptive ones. Hardly are they born when they begin to die, and long for doctrines of lassitude and renunciation. They would fain be dead, and we should approve of their wish. Let us beware of awakening those dead ones, and of damaging those living coffins. They meet an invalid, or an old man, or a corpse, and immediately they say, "Life is refuted." But they only are refuted, and their eye, which seeth only one aspect of existence. Shrouded in thick melancholy, and eager for the little casualties that bring death, thus do they wait, and clench their teeth. Or else they grasp at sweetmeats, and mock their childishness thereby. They cling to their straw of life, and mock at their still clinging to it. Yeah, it's kind of a sound bug. I will just live with it. Their wisdom speaketh thus: a fool, he who remaineth alive. But so far are we fools, and that is the foolish thing in life, the foolishest thing in life. A fool, he who remaineth alive, but so far are we fools, and that is the foolishest thing in life. Life is only suffering, so say others, and lie not. Then see to it that ye cease. See to it that the life ceaseth, which is only suffering. And let this be the teaching of your virtue. Thou shalt slay thyself. Thou shalt steal away from thyself. Lust is sin, so say some who preach death. Let us go apart and beget no children. Giving birth is troublesome, say others. Why still give birth? One beareth only the unfortunate. They are preachers of death. Pity is necessary, so saith a third party. Take what I have, take what I am. So much less doth life bind me. Were they constantly pitiful, then they would make their neighbors sick of life. To be wicked, that would be their true goodness. But they want to be rid of life. What care they if they bind others still faster with their chains and gifts? And ye also, to whom life is rough labor and disquiet, are ye not very tired of life? Are ye not very ripe for the sermon of death? All ye, to whom rough labor is dear, and the rapid, new and strange, ye put up with yourselves badly. Your diligence is flight, and the will to self-forgetfulness. If ye believed more in life, then would ye devote yourselves less to the momentary. But for waiting ye have not enough of capacity in you, nor even for idling. Everywhere resoundeth the voices of those who preach death, and the earth is full of those to whom death hath to be preached, or life eternal. It is all the same to me, only they pass away quickly. Thus spake Zarathustra. He seems to be targeting people of religious order who preach certain things, and yet these preachers, he's saying, they're preaching things to say, don't enjoy life because it is for the eternal. But yet at the same time, are they not also those who are gathering things by it? They're only seeing one aspect of existence, and that there's more to it that could be, I guess, cherished and stuff. You know, that apparently these characters, they're grasping at sweetmeats, and they're doing things like they're taking from those who have not, so that they have. And Zarathustra is saying, I wish you who preach about death were to just die, because then they wouldn't be there preaching anymore, and those who want to enjoy living can do so without the preachers being there. Yeah, I have some thoughts of my own I can add to that, but those are my thoughts. I think to try to explain them would just become a long story in itself, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but that would be requiring you to like go through all the pieces to understand where I'm coming from, to build up to something that's only just a touch more than the story already says. The story already says what it says, you know, and perhaps you relate it to it in your own way. I think I'll just leave it at that. The Nibelungen Inlied. I did not read that correctly. I'm sure it's a translation from another book, or a translation from another language. I would imagine so. It's short. Well, we're going to let the shade read this. But yeah, time is moving quite quickly. soon. We're not too far off. We have 10 pieces of paper to draw pictures with, and we'll be drawing pictures every day or so. Maybe do a bit of digging back and forth. We'll soon be reaching 10 seconds per second, which will mean at that point, it's no longer going to take us 400 days. If we're going at 10 times the speed, it should only be 40 days. I guess that gives us an idea of how long things are going to take going forward. Here, I think we've reached, on this day, 2 weeks worth. And then what happens when we go beyond 10 seconds per day? So about a month, perhaps, overall. But yeah, enjoy your book shade. And we will see you in a few days. The shade, not us. We will be back tomorrow. And there are a couple of things that we have the possibility of exploring. Not sure which one we'll do, but we'll do some, that's for sure.